The phone conversation between fantasy veterans Bob Harris and Matt Waldman is a quick and dirty rundown of players, units, or teams from Sunday's games. Feel it or fuck it is our instant verdict on the fantasy value of a player or situation, not the ability, effort, or character of the player. This is just how two old-timers in this industry talk when they got a lot to cover in a little time.
Good morning, Matt Waldman. Here we are, the first week of June, or almost into the second week of June. There's OTAs, there's things going on. Not like a ton of things, but man, we're sitting here waiting for DeAndre Hopkins to find a job. We're waiting here for Dalvin Cook to lose a job, or not. I don't know. It's that time of year, so not a lot of really rock-solid developments to hang our hat on, but we got some things to chew on here. How you doing today?
I'm waiting for my sinuses to stop swelling up. So if I sound funny, and I may not even have a video on this broadcast because the only person I might want to gross out is Bob with this particular pod, but we're going to bear through it. So
I'm past the being grossed out by you portion of this affair stuff.
So yeah, other than that, pretty good actually.
All right, well let's get into it. There is, the usual off-season chatter. So I think this kind of stuff is good to dig our mitts into and get a little feel of whether we're fucking it or feeling it. Doug Pederson, he thinks Trevor Lawrence is going to get a lot better. Fantasy Nation out there thinks he's already pretty good. He's going off his quarterback 8 in best ball. Are you feeling upside at that ADP for Trevor Lawrence?
I am to an extent because I think that he could be a top 5 quarterback, especially with Calvin Ridley returning, Evan Ingram returning to the team, and them being able to diversify their offense a little bit, get a little younger out there. Overall, I think that what Doug Pederson saw was a young quarterback maturing in those pivotal moments, those 3 to 5 plays per game that make a difference. And I think Trevor Lawrence still has room to grow to where we could see him become a player that people thought maybe Justin Herbert already had become, but maybe is not quite there, but was at closer to that line than where Lawrence started. And I think, Lawrence, I think overall has room to grow to be a top 3 or top 5 guy.
Feeling this as well. And by the way, I think Justin Herbert has room to move back up as well. But Lawrence had the super strong season, but at that, what was it, the last 5 games of the season last year, threw for 1,279 yards, had 10 touchdowns, total 8 passing, 2 rushing during that streak. I mean, that showed, I think, a little more upside than maybe we're even giving him credit for. So I'm on board with this. I'm heavily invested. Perhaps that's the other reason I see it, because I want it to come true. I'm speaking it into existence. So is Romeo Doubs up in Green Bay. He believes Jordan Love can do the exact same thing as Aaron Rodgers. Are you feeling that or something else?
In theory, I'm feeling that Jordan Love could become a good enough quarterback to be a good starter with really good athletic ability that might make him a fantasy asset, and we're going to see whether he can prove that this year. But the fact that Romeo Doubs believes it, fuck that, because it took Devontae Adams. He said, look, it took me 3 years to figure out how to play in the NFL, not because of my athletic ability. That was already there. It was how to really apply the techniques and understand the concepts of coverages and be on the same page with a quarterback the caliber of Aaron Rodgers. Romeo Doubs is in year 2, entering year 2. And the thing he wasn't very good at in year 1 was being on the same page with his quarterback in terms of coverages and making the small technical adjustments against high-end reports. It's kind of like having it's kind of like having a kid who critique drummers and doesn't know the difference between like a certain roll or a flam or anything of any technical nature of drumming, and his
rudiments escape him,
and his drums, and he hasn't even heard a drum more than once in his life. I mean, so I look at Doubs, and he's not qualified to talk about what Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers can do at this stage. He needs to focus on actually just hoping that he can be on the same page with his quarterback, any quarterback. And once that happens, then we'll give it a little more credence.
So I'm feeling Romeo, I'm totally fucking his analysis, but feeling his efforts to get in the good graces of his quarterback.
I would agree with that.
This is what he should be doing, right? We've got a kiddie core here. We got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. Let's say Jaden Reed is a starter. Let's say Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, or this offense is being built in a way. And the Packers have said it. They want a receiving core that's going to grow with their quarterback. I don't know if they're suggesting a rebuild is coming. I think they are suggesting that, and I think it's inevitable, right? But we don't know what they have in Jordan Love. They have a better idea than we do, but I don't think they entirely know. And you hear a lot of talk about what is the offense going to look like, and you hear the answers. Well, we're not really sure about that. But kudos to Romeo Doubs for getting in front of this whole. This is my quarterback. I love him.
Well, let's take this another direction too.
Oh no.
Okay. Fuck the media for asking the question if it's the way I believe the question was probably asked, which was, do you believe that Love can do what Aaron Rodgers has done? Can he come in and replace Aaron and do the things Aaron did? And then Doubs is left in the situation where he's going to say, of course he can. I believe he can do, and that's one of those things. So fuck the media for asking a dumbass question that doesn't have enough detail with that.
How much of my job of blurb writing and so forth is just based on the fact that somebody asked somebody a question and they have to answer. That's not actually news, but it's just somebody had to answer a damn question because somebody's out there throwing the question in their face. And I know when I hear a story, like first thing in the morning, I'll hear a version of a story. I know there's going to be 4 waves of repercussion or response to that. The coach is asked a question, he responds. Well, then the player's going to be asked a similar question. Then somebody's going to an agent's going to get in somebody's ear and say, no, this is behind the scenes. So there's going to be, for every story, there is an opposite and equal reaction. And to every reaction, there are 3 or 4 opposite and equal reactions. Romeo Doubs, thank you for feeding the beast. We need something to write about this time of year, and I appreciate you, young man. All right. So let's get to the real part of this then, the Packers offense. This backfield is primed for a big season. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, both going at pretty reasonable ADPs. You feeling those guys as value plays this year?
I traded for Aaron Jones in a dynasty league this year just because I figured they're going to be checking the ball down a lot to him. I think you're going to see Jordan Love throwing a lot of deep balls to the perimeter, struggling over the middle, which means that Jaden Reed, who I really like, but as a player, if he's in the slot and running a lot in the middle of the field, it might be real boom bust for him at best. And you're going to hope that he's going to be used a lot in the perimeter. So for me, it is the running backs. I think the running backs are probably going to be the safest bet because at the end of games, when the Packers are playing a version of what the Detroit Lions were doing a couple of years ago, there's going to be a lot of zone defenses that are playing off, and they're going to just feed the ball to the backs and try and move up and down the field when they're behind by 14 or by 21 or down by 7 late in the game.
Aaron Jones currently running back 17 in best ball ADP. A.J. Dillon way down the list, running back 33. I'll take that.
I'll take that too.
I'll take that price all day and hope for a huge year. Maybe the year they hoped he would have last season that nobody had because, look, the offense wasn't good. Neither was that Aaron Rodgers guy who has also been talking and making stories this week. Thank you, Aaron, for that. Geno Smith and Jared Goff, feeling them as one-hit wonders, or are they fucking amazing and going to be great again this year?
Hell no, they're not one-hit wonders. I think, first of all, Jared Goff was a hit with the Rams for a season, so he no longer can qualify as a one-hit wonder. Second of all, the Geno Smith hate, and I gotta say, I think there's some of it with some of my staff at Football Guys. I just don't. Some of my teammates over there. I don't know, man. I don't agree with that because Geno Smith is very good with making adjustments pre and post snap. He showed a great job of doing that. That was something that was also even further substantiated, I think, this week by their coaching staff, or it was DK Metcalf actually, who was talking about how, they asked him the difference between him and Russell Wilson, and instead of falling for like a rube like Romeo Doubs, who's gonna, he'll figure it out in a year or two. DK Metcalf was like, I'd rather not talk about the differences. I'd rather talk about what was similar about them. And he said that the similarities is that, Geno really did a great job of understanding the offense and being able to make checks and make adjustments the way that he did. And when you see what he had to do with an offense where they really wanted to use 3 receivers, and we've talked about this before, and they couldn't. Now they're going to have 3 good starting receivers, and and I'm emphasizing Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yes, he should be the first receiver off the board. Among the rookies this year, you should be taking him in redraft leagues where you can get him at the value that he probably is, because I think he's the most likely to give you Cooper Kupp-esque production. Not prime Cooper Kupp. I'm not asking him to threaten 1,600 to 1,900 yards of receiving, but I think you're going to get what Kupp could have gave you like year 1, which is, I think, 700 to 900 yards receiving, somewhere around 6 to 8 touchdowns. I think he can do that, and still, Geno Smith can support DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. This offensive line isn't bad. When you look at Goff, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You get Sam Laporta, who I think you're going to split outside a fair bit. Jameson Williams will be coming back, but even without him, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, and he has a nice rapport with a guy like Josh Reynolds. Marvin Jones is back. Maybe not, maybe those guys aren't going to be fantasy options for you, but they're going to be able to help this team with what they do well to spread the field out and create matchups. And I think that, both those guys can be top 12 quarterbacks this year. And at the very least, I think Jared Goff will stay within the top 15, even if, he doesn't have quite the personnel that he did last year.
Yeah, you're currently getting these guys. Quarterback 15, Geno Smith for a top 10 finisher last year. Jared Goff right in that range, going up to 16 right now. These are like the safety valve quarterbacks. So you can skip the entire draft and grab these guys well into the double-digit rounds and feel really good about what you're doing and probably get way more upside. Geno Smith in particular, I think gives you that consistent upside. And apparently Jared Goff, as long as they're either home or not on the road, one of those two things, he's really good. And look, he could extend that. I'm with you. Feeling both these guys is super, super awesome values heading into drafts this year. Josh McDaniels said this past week he is not concerned about the reports and the rumors that Jimmy Garoppolo might not be able to play this season. Said young McDaniels, "I have no anxiety. You guys may have anxiety. I have none." Are you feeling that, Matt, or might he have a little anxiousness behind the scenes, a little FOMO if we were missing out on actually having a quarterback?
Well, the off talked about Jay Cutler story here, that Ted Sundquist relayed to me years ago, and then the off talked about will he or won't he coach for 2 different teams, tells me that Josh McDaniels just has no conscience. Maybe he's just a psychopath, like a functioning psychopath.
Yeah, I like this.
Who just doesn't, who just doesn't have really any feelings on this level about anything, and he's just not a criminal. He just, I don't know.
That we know of.
Yeah, that we know of. But I'll say this. I mean, it's probably too early right now, but I don't know who they'll get if they don't if they don't have Garoppolo.
I'm feeling that if he doesn't have anxiety, he made another portion of his comment was, I have inside information telling me I should, that I should not be worried. I think he probably does have that information, and the actions of the Raiders suggest that they have that same information, right? They put a big ass clause in his contract, that gives them all kinds of protections and outs in case the worst case comes about. Probably would have been ideal if he hadn't had the surgery, waited until March to have the surgery. All those things are true. Also, I think probably they're not as anxious as the rest of the world. And nobody's out there drafting him anyway. The concern is for Davante Adams. And I think Jarrett Stidham showed us last year that Davante Adams has earned a quarterback-proof card. He had a great game with Stidham last year. I don't know that he'd have one with Brian Hoyer, or maybe more about Aiden. Is it Aiden O'Connell? What is it?
Aiden
Who is
O'Connell. It? Yep.
So
So and I would say that the time for us to see any anxiety surrounding Jimmy Garoppolo is when there's pressure in the pocket or the game is in the final minutes of the fourth quarter, because that's when you're going to see anxiety take a hold from Jimmy Garoppolo, who you watched him even in Eastern Illinois. I believe it was Eastern Illinois, where he would turtle in the face of pressure. So I think that's the limiting thing with him. Good enough for fantasy stats if he's got great surrounding talent around him, but I don't think the Raiders' offensive line is nearly on par with the 49ers at this stage. So it's going to be interesting.
There are people out there who believe that there's a correlation between a rushing quarterback and the opportunities they take and the running backs they play alongside. The Buffalo Bills might be evidence of that. Anthony Richardson limiting Jonathan Taylor. Are you feeling that, or fuck that? Nothing's limiting Jonathan Taylor. It's adding to it.
Well, did we really have an issue with Justin Fields and David Montgomery when Montgomery was healthy, or Khalil Herbert? Did we really have an issue with Jalen Hurts and anybody who they had throw out there in that offensive line, including Miles Sanders, who got himself a second contract to be a lead back on another team? I'd say no. So, did Steve McNair limit Eddie George? Not much way back in the day, if you can go that far back. So, yeah, I'm not feeling that. Maybe early on, I'm feeling the limit of Jonathan Taylor, where he's not maybe top 5 automatically on the board, and maybe he's a top 15 overall player, because Anthony Richardson, as he's learning the game this year, may not be in as good of situations to identify when he should check to a run. That would be a big play. That he might not recognize that with a defensive look that he might recognize 2-3 years from now. Or that his inefficiency with certain aspects of the game as a rookie, as he's learning, may limit the amount of opportunities that Taylor gets. But it's not due to his running. It's due to him being a rookie, just like every other rookie who goes through the things I described for the most part.
Sometimes we can have addition by subtraction. He may lose a look here or there, or a carry here or there. Also, opposing defenses, when you have Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor at the mesh point, and you're trying to decide who you're going to keep an eye on.
Great point.
I'm guessing this is going to work out in Jonathan Taylor's favor as often as not when he gets the ball in his hands, because that Richardson guy, he's going to get some attention. That would be my feeling. I think it's a safe bet.
I think, and let's just say this. I'm just going to go this route. I don't want to see this happen very often, because I want to see Anthony Richardson have a long career as a passer, and he's a good passer. But the dude is the most athletic quarterback entering the league in the history of the game, and he runs with the contact balance and stamina of pace of Marshawn Lynch. So imagine having a Marshawn Lynch-like quarterback on the field alongside Jonathan Taylor. At least Marshawn Lynch-like in space. That's kind of scary.
That is kind of scary. I'm a little horrified at the moment. Let me collect myself. The Falcons offense. Okay, Bijan Robinson's very good. I get it, right? And he's going to be fantastic, and you're going to pay a lot to draft him. I'm going to just suggest, and I've kind of been an Arthur Smith fan over the course of time, but looking at his efforts to maximize the talents of people like Kyle Pitts and Drake London has me less than enthusiastic about this. But look, and we have Desmond Ridder at quarterback there. I think there's, the pieces are all there. Is this the year? Are you feeling this is the year that Arthur Smith puts this all together and gets all these pieces going, because the missing piece was Bijan Robinson?
I think it's all up to I don't think the missing piece was Bijan, to be honest, because Cordero looked pretty damn good, and Tyler Algier wasn't too shabby. So if you ask me, the missing piece was the quarterback, because Marcus Mariota, they described early in the season, we had to tailor the offense around Mariota to give him things that he could do and avoid the things he couldn't do. AKA, they needed to give him one side of the field to read on a regular basis and not ask him to do more than that as often as you would expect. So if Desmond Ridder can be an actual franchise caliber starter and show that promise of reading the entire field and making good decisions, then I think you'll see Pitts and London work out. But if he can't do it, well, there's always next year.
Okay, based on all that, then Desmond Ridder as like maybe kind of a super late round if you're kind of buying on a quarterback, so it's a super late round fantasy QB2, or maybe even a QB league. I mean, I think he at least probably has some job security, although Taylor Heineke would hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I would say, well, if you got Taylor Heineke there, then I would say this. That's their saying, we've got a journeyman bridge guy that if this doesn't work out by week 8, we're going for another quarterback in this in the 2024 draft. So, but I'd still take the chance on Ridder. It's late in the draft, why not? That's great value.
I'm with you there, which is why I made that a question. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't as wrong as I thought I was. Tony Pollard, is he a top 10 fantasy running back, Matt Waldman? He finished that way last year. Is it sustainable?
Yeah, I think it's sustainable. It's just going to depend on how much they use some of these other backs who seem to have a lot of overlap with what Pollard does, in ways that I would not want Pollard off the field. Like Deuce Vaughn. Are you really going to take Pollard off the field as a receiver to give Deuce Vaughn more looks? I mean, I love Vaughn's receiving skills, but I just don't know if that's really going to fly. So I think Pollard will probably be on the low end of the top 10. There's probably something to be said about his stamina and touch count, how much they want to limit it. But I still think that it'll be enough for him to be a running back 1 in fantasy.
Feeling the same there. Cam Akers is going as late running back 2. Do you feel Cam Akers is a running back 2 who will deliver running back 1 numbers on a semi-regular basis?
I was going to joke and say, before you gave me the end of that question, I was going to say, fuck that. He's a running back 1. I think he's a top 5 running back this year if Matthew Stafford stays healthy. The way he played, watching his tape last year, I was super impressed with what he did, given the offensive line.
Yep.
So I'm bullish on Cam Akers, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay, because you can bet your ass I'm taking Zach Evans, pretty much at the end of redrafts all the time. And if that doesn't work out, there's a certain guy on the waiver wire by the name of Tyon Evans, while everyone else is taking Kyron Williams and Ronnie Rivers or whoever else they throw out, have there still on the staff. I think Tyon Evans will make this team, and he'll be the guy if the other 2 go down.
I hope you don't put this video up so that people can't see me writing down that name as we say it. I feel the same about Cam Akers, by the way. I feel like this is a huge value. I'm wondering if you feel the same about Rachaad White as a running back 3. Is he going to deliver us running back 1 weeks?
That's a low bar for Rachaad White, and it probably needs to be, because that offensive line is not good, and their quarterback situation, it's real boom bust with Baker Mayfield, and I'm leaning much more towards bust. I'll say this: I would not take Rachaad White in that range. There's got to be better value with safer talents. I will, however, take Sean Tucker at the end of a draft, where it's virtually free.
They did give Sean Tucker a fair amount of money, meaning as much money as I think any of the undrafted free agents got. So good for him. I wanted to say, what is the actual number here? Who's going around the same range as him? He's going a little bit after, just outside. The Cam Akers is going 23, so he's just inside the running back 2. Rachaad White is going after Javonte Williams, who is going at 24. So the first of the first of the running back 3s. But he's going ahead of guys that I like a lot better. James Conner. I'd probably rather have David. Well, I don't know about David Montgomery.
I would take Montgomery and Conner easily.
Definitely A.J. Dillon. Conner for sure. A.J. Dillon, probably David Montgomery as well. So I'm kind of with you there. Sticking with Tampa Bay, I'm starting to get – so I'm trying to go take lessons from each year as I go. I'm a young person. I'm trying to learn as I go along here in this fantasy space. So last year what I learned was my belief that a horrible quarterback situation means the worst possible outcome for wide receivers was disputed by people like Amari Cooper and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So I sit here in drafts watching Chris Godwin going off as running back, wide receiver 26, Mike Evans is wide receiver 30, and I'm starting to feel like they are values. Are you with me, or are you saying, fuck you, Bob Harris, those guys suck?
No, they're both terrific receivers, and always will be a huge fan of Chris Godwin. I just think that Mike Evans will probably be a better bet based on how Baker Mayfield throws the ball. Baker Mayfield's not great in the middle of the field. I think more the timing routes where he's perpetually behind and gets Odell Beckham's daddy making film to show how bad Baker was is a good example of that. I think Evans is in a better shape, and I'm kind of off Godwin this year, which kind of sucks because in a lot of my dynasty leagues, Godwin has been an anchor piece for my teams. So I'm just going to have to grin and bear it this year with him.
So I believe the upshoot there is Bob Harris. You are so fucking right. It amazes me. I appreciate that, Matt. Let's see. Are you feeling the concern?
This still stems from our conversation off air from this weekend, but that's for another show.
For another show. Are you feeling the concerns about Zach Charbonnet cutting into Kenneth Walker III's workload?
To an extent, but not enough that I'm going to drop Kenneth Walker outside running back 2 territory. I think that this offense is good enough that you can see Charbonnet as maybe a running back 3 to begin for this year, and Walker still being a running back 2. Walker was too good. I think he's one of the better backs. I thought he was the second best back in last year's draft class to Breece Hall. Zach Charbonnet is a nice back, but I don't have him graded at the same level. He's certainly capable of more than replacing Walker if Walker gets hurt and has an injury that causes him to lose something. But I would say that to see this, I don't think we're going to see Walker as a one and done running back in the league by any stretch of the imagination.
I will posit this theory. We've seen this movie before, right? Chris Carson was pretty much locked in as the top option there for Pete Carroll. They drafted Rashad Penny, and we were all horrified. It wasn't that bad news. They still stuck. Pete Carroll wanted to stick with Chris Carson, and he did as long as he was in the locked and upright position. Rashad Penny gets the job. We were worried then when they drafted Kenneth Walker, yet Rashad Penny had the job until he couldn't hold on to it. I think it's the same situation here. It just seems like that's the approach they take. We're going to see both guys, but the primary guy is going to remain the primary guy until he cannot be the primary guy. Unfortunately, that's often been the case, that he has not been able to hold on to that job due to injury, whoever it's been. So we'll hope for the best for Mr. Kenneth Walker III and my dynasty shares thereof.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. You would have taken both of them. I mean, So you probably, to some degree, for at least a year, I think there was you could probably say the same about Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. So there's a lot of running back tandems like this that work out.
I agree with that. Are you buying into Okonkwo and Juwan Johnson as breakout tight ends?
Okonkwo, absolutely. Johnson, I think in theory it makes sense, but I'm a Foster Moreau believer, and now that he's going to work it out in OTAs, I think he's the better prospect. I think he knows Derek Carr really well, and I think he's going to be in an offense where maybe he actually gets an opportunity to be the tight end that I always thought he could be, which is a top 7 to top 10 option production-wise.
Fair enough. Cole Kmet. I feel like he's an overlooked commodity. I feel like his floor is high enough to make him a tight end 1. Do you feel that, or are you saying, Bob Harris, you are stupid this time?
No, he's like the Damian Harris of tight ends. Love
the Harris analogy.
You see, there you go. And that's the thing. I mean, I think he's the type of guy that the ceiling might not be high enough if Robert Tunyon's still healthy enough throughout the year. But Kmet is a solid player who blocks well. He's able to work the zones. He's not maybe the matchup player Tunyon is one-on-one, but with the way this offense is going to look, I think Kmet's going to get enough opportunities that you could see him maybe be, especially in a 14 or 16 team league, I think he'll be a low-end tight end 1. It might be a stretch in a 12-team league or lower.
Totally agree with that, and I feel like the price is really nice. Jahan Dotson seems to be a buzzy dude, exciting many in the fantasy community. He excited me by saying, offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy has brought a culture to the team. All right, sure. I think he was asked a question. I'm not all that excited. But are you feeling Eric Bieniemy as a positive change agent in Washington, D.C. for the Commanders?
Maybe for the players temporarily, but as we know about work cultures, you can have good coworkers, you can have good immediate supervisors, or bosses, but if the executive part of the organization sucks, then it all trickles downhill in a manner that it's disappointing. So I would say until what's going on upstairs has changed significantly for the better, this is just a band-aid.
Fair enough. I kind of like Eric Bieniemy. I'm hoping some of the cheeky things that we've seen translate to the Washington offense. And that being the case, everyone, watch Logan Thomas. The tight end is going to be very busy in this offense, and they didn't add nobody. They didn't do a damn thing.
Oh, but they do have someone.
Okay, go ahead. Rain on my parade. Rain on my parade, smart guy.
Cole Turner. You definitely want Logan
there.
Thomas. You definitely want Logan Thomas. You were right, but I would say write down Cole Turner, because this is a big, long, lanky guy who can win the ball, and apparently he has been outstanding thus far. They have been super impressed with him, and if it weren't for an injury late last year, they were planning on giving him playing time. So they say that he looks great out there. And I know it's early, so we've talked about this type of thing, but he's a talented player, and I think that with Logan Thomas being in his mid-30s already, it's a good idea to keep an eye out for this kid.
I hate it when you do that. Tom Brady is certain he's retired, Matt. His dream is to buy into the Raiders. Are you feeling Tom Brady truly being retired this time? I feel like a reporter asking you a question about one of your teammates. And
I want to say yes. I really want to say yes, but I can envision him, not delaying the buy-in, or finding a way to work his way back to playing for the Raiders. I'm going to say I'm certain he's retired. How about you? Where are you at?
I totally think he's retired. I think he's had enough of this nonsense, and he's going into the ownership end of things, and all that means he will certainly change his mind and make me look foolish, and I'm all about that. Go ahead and do it, Tom. I don't really care whether you play or not. I hope you're done, because it's been an illustrious career. You're a fantastic player. You've brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. You've brought a lot of angst to people on the other side. I always say this, sometimes when we talk about the politics and the ongoing things in the world and the divisions that we face, I remind people, well, I work in a business where the greatest player of all time is also the biggest cheater ever. So it's easy for me to understand the duality of these things, because Tom Brady has been there to guide the way. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate you. You're the GOAT of all things. So stay retired.
Life is complicated.
Why don't you take some rest and cure your sinuses, young man? We'll do this again next week.
Yeah, we will try.
All right, love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.